Hello and welcome to Voices of Agriculture here on RFD. I'm Gene Hall and we're coming to you this week from the Lone Star State of Texas. On the show this time, we're going to take a look at an old crop with new possibilities for bioenergy, an artist with an affinity for the faces of cows, creeping urbanization in the state of Texas, and we'll visit the farms of the 3 top young farmers of Texas. We'll get started right after this.
It's a grassroots voice in Austin and Washington for farmers and ranchers like me.
It's educational and scholarship opportunities for young people like me.
It's money-saving benefits for member families
like us.
What is Texas Farm Bureau? I am.
I am.
I am.
An old crop in Texas, often raised for forages for livestock, now has new possibilities as a feedstock for bioenergy. Ed Wolf has the story.
About 3 years ago, Bill Rooney was spending close to 3/4 of his time trying to grow better grain sorghum. Now this head of the sorghum breeding program at Texas A&M University spends that much time mapping genes for energy sorghum. This plant is not grown for its heads of grain, but its leaves and stalks that can be turned into biofuels. This tall sorghum is expected to become an even greater focus in the months and years ahead.
The markets and the commercial products from some of these research efforts could be commercialized as early as next year, in 2010.
But having the seed doesn't necessarily mean it's time to plant. With much research across the country on the genomics and genetics of energy crops, there hasn't been as much on how this crop will get from the field to the fuel tank and all points in between. The Texas A&M Bioenergy program is trying to change that by looking at practical solutions to help farmers produce these crops and deliver them to biorefineries.
It's going to have to fit into your system in terms of your land, of your rotational patterns, your equipment needs. You don't want to have to go out and buy a whole new fleet of equipment to do this.
By using implements already found on many farms and ranches like balers, rakes, and harvesters, it will make it easier for producers to introduce energy crops into their operations. They even turned to the cotton module builder, which was invented by Texas A&M back in the 70s, in hopes of compacting the chopped sorghum for more efficient transport of the crop.
It's fitting quite nicely. There's still some rough edges that need to be smooth, but we're seeing that we can take that practice and adapt it into the bioenergy program as part of the production process.
All this plays into the question of sustainability. Biocrops will have to be produced in a manner that does not impact livestock production, which is why all but one of A&M's bioenergy projects is working with new feedstocks that will take the pressure off grain-based biofuels. But also, how and where will these crops be grown? What will the input cost be over traditional crops? And how will producers keep up with the demands of biorefineries? Most elevators only receive grain for about a month and a half, where these biorefineries will need to run all day, every day, all year long.
Really the key here is not to focus on one crop. It's going to take a multitude of crops. It's going to take a group of producers or cooperative of producers working in collaboration with these industrial plants in order to supply that plant.
But you need to connect the dots from the genetics to the agronomics to the machine systems to the conversion technology and then to the policy issues.
Policy issues which continue to be hotly debated a long way from the turn rows. As the U.S. Senate continues to consider the energy bill, farmers and ranchers know it will cause their cost to increase because of the cap-and-trade program. And while some of this will be offset when prices begin to rise at the grocery store, much of the extra expense will not be passed on by the farmer since he has little control over commodity prices. Cap-and-trade will also be a defining factor in alternative energy production.
As a producer, I'm very concerned about the impacts on agriculture of cap and trade. But cap and trade could drive how we produce and use biomass for energy conversion. How that comes out of Congress will dictate, I think, to a certain extent, how fast bioenergy crops produce.
Whether it's tall sorghum or switchgrass or even the microalgae plantations currently under experimentation, it will likely take everything working as one to make fuels of tomorrow even a remote possibility. Reporting from College Station, Texas, I'm Ed Wolf for Voices of Agriculture.
All over the world in our history, cities were established near the primary industry of the day, agriculture. As a consequence of that today, when Texas cities grow, they reach out and claim prime farmland. Matt Felder has the story.
Field by field, acre by acre, the rich black soil of the Southeast is vanishing, paved over by yards of concrete, steel, and progress. Disappearing underneath it all is a cotton industry once the backbone of Fort Bend County.
We lose a few hundred acres each year to the urbanization development. As Houston becomes greater in size, they have to increase and move out further west.
Reynolds managed the Beasley Farmers cotton gin for the past 9 years. During that time, his number of customers was cut in half, not because of competition from other gins, but competition from developers. Subdivisions are springing up in every direction, making use of the easily developed farmland. The proximity to the state's largest city makes Fort Bend County an attractive commute for residents seeking a more rural setting, even though the county was recently reclassified to an urban status. In some cases, farmers, many of which lease their plots, don't know from one year to the next how much land they will have to grow a crop.
A lot of the landowners can't pass up the opportunity to sell their land for a lot more money than what they can get out of it from farming, from agriculture, even if they have extremely good crops for what they can sell it for development. There's just no comparison.
Land that was once $100 an acre is now worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars an acre. Friend expects the urbanization to completely shut him down in the end, but he hopes the inevitable won't happen until retirement comes knocking. Needville has seen a strip mall spring up where a grain warehouse once sat. The local cotton gin has recently shut down, retooling as a concrete plant, turning out culverts instead of bales. The shifting trend has become apparent to lifelong Needville resident and insurance agent Kay Banker.
With the loss in business on the crop insurance side, we definitely see an increase on the homeowner side, and the auto. So for us, business-wise, it's okay, but you can definitely see a trend shifting into the other lines of business.
The shift is bittersweet for county natives like Banker, friend, and landowner Walter Ross Werla. On one hand, it's heartbreaking to see the land turn to stone, but on the other, it's an opportunity that few can afford to pass up.
No question about it, we're going to be one of the largest counties in the state eventually, and it's just a matter of time until more and more subdivisions spring up.
The forecast is grim for the local cotton industry. Predictions are that in 10 years or less, the crop once termed as white gold will be history, local lore, something only reminiscent at local coffee shops. Area grain crops and the ranching industry altogether could suffer the same fate as more people trade the city for the suburbs and development dollars for ag profits. The thought alone sparks some level of concern as more and more land is taken out of production. The U.S. already depends on foreign sources for the majority of its energy, and it leads many to wonder if the country's food supply may follow suit.
It'd be a mistake for the family farm and the consumer in general. We have the best quality food and fiber system available, the lowest cost and the greatest quality. If we start depending on others for that, we're not going to have any control and say over what that quality is.
For Voices of Agriculture, Matt Felder, Fort Bend County.
More of Voices of Agriculture right after this.
You're tuned in to TFB Radio Network,
the #1 agricultural radio news network in Texas, based on the CUME rating in the 2009 Ag Media Research Study.
Agriculture is Texas' renewable industry, not only growing food and fiber for Texas families, but creating 1 in 5 Texas jobs. I'm Mike Barnett, editor of Texas Agriculture. In our publication, you'll read profiles of the trendsetters of agriculture in the Lone Star State. We'll bring you profiles of farmers and ranchers surviving and thriving on the land and the issues shaping the future of rural Texas. Read all about it in Texas Agriculture, an exclusive benefit of your Texas Farm Bureau membership.
In his travels across the state, Ed Wolf ran into a guy that has always wanted to make a living off cows. But instead of horses, saddles, pens, and veterinary supplies, the tools of his trade are brushes and canvas. Here's Ed with the story.
I was an animal science major in college. I was going to have a ranch. I was going to have a commercial herd, a small registered herd, and none of that happened.
Even though those dreams never became a reality, for Glenn Lyles, cows still pay the bills. But saddles and spurs aren't the tools of his trade. Instead, a canvas, a brush, and an imagination as big as Texas help him make more per head than any cattleman he knows. His cattle aren't sold to auction barns, but in art galleries across the Lone Star State.
To this day, I wish I had a herd of cattle. but I don't. I paint them instead.
Glenn is known in art circles as the cow face guy. The faces of cows drinking from water troughs are the mainstay of his 17-year career. He named his first cow face painting Drinking Buddies, and it immediately sold to a friend in Houston. He painted another for the Texas Cattle Feeders Association to sell in a benefit auction.
I had a man in Oklahoma then that bid on it but didn't get the painting, called and ordered one, and I thought, maybe I'm on to something. So did the third one then, and then decided, well, I better have one for the shows I was in. And they began to get a lot of attention and began to sell, and I've painted 63 of those now.
Artistic success hasn't come easy for this flatlander from the Texas Panhandle. After 19 years of farming the land where he was raised in Hale County, fate stepped in. Glenn developed arthritis, and surgery was needed to fuse the bones in his left foot. Farming was no longer an option.
Was driving a tractor one day and just had this very clear thought about paint for a living. And so whenever I got out of farming, I sold my equipment, paid off the house and car, didn't owe anybody anything, and I gave myself 2 years then to see if I could make it go, and this is 17 years later.
After almost 2 decades of painting everything from horses to hill country scenes to family portraits, Glenn is finally comfortable with the term artist. And since this artistic streak seems to be hereditary, he has offered all his nieces and nephews an art lesson, hoping to inspire the next generation of Texas artists.
2 nephews and 2 nieces have taken me up on it so far, and I'm working with one right now. She's just starting, never painted an oil painting before, and we'll see whether we're spark interest or not.
Though his dreams of ranching haven't faded, this West Texas native does admit there are benefits to painting cattle over owning them.
Never have to break ice or get kicked or haul feed or anything like that. So, and they never get out. They never get out on the road. So.
For Voices of Agriculture, I'm Ed Wolf in Waco.
Voices of Agriculture will be right back right after this.
Attending college is a goal of many young people, but getting on campus is very expensive. That's where Texas Farm Bureau can help. As members of the Texas Farm Bureau, students can compete for thousands of dollars in scholarships through Texas Farm Bureau's annual statewide contests. Free enterprise speech, talent find, and Miss TFB. The Texas Farm Bureau, making a difference for agriculture and rural Texas.
Decades ago, Americans started leaving the farm for other professions and pursuits. The farmers that stayed fed America and much of the world. Today we grow more food than ever, and it's better, safer, and healthier. We live in the land of plenty, thanks to modern agricultural technology and the skills of our farm and ranch families. This message is brought to you by the Texas Farm Bureau, the voice of Texas agriculture. Today's abundance of food and fiber is brought to you by America's farmers and ranchers.
Each year, the Texas Farm Bureau sponsors a contest to determine the top young farmer in the state. We took our cameras to the farms of the 3 finalists in that contest.
3 of the best young agricultural producers in the Lone Star State. 1 from East Texas, 1 from West Texas, and 1 from Central Texas. Finalists for the 2009 Texas Farm Bureau Outstanding Young Farmer Rancher Award. Texas Farm Bureau recognizes the accomplishments of Texas' top young agricultural leaders for the hard work and determination needed to succeed in this ever-changing industry. This year's outstanding YF&R finalists, Ernest and Courtney Bales of San Jacinto County, Paul and Monica Mensener of Runnels County, and Michael and Lee Welch of Bell County. These 3 are the best of the best among Texas young agricultural producers. Ernest Bales is a beef cattle, hay, and timber producer in San Jacinto County. He also founded Repro Select, which has quickly become one of the top names in cattle and wildlife genetics. He and his wife Courtney have 2 sons. Growing up 4th generation in a long line of East Texas dairymen taught Ernest Bales IV from an early age the value of a hard day's work. As his college buddies took off to weekend adventures, he headed home to help his dad and granddad with twice-a-day milking, trucking operations, and a beef cattle herd in San Jacinto County.
We milked at 2 and 2. That's not what every college kid wants to come home and do on the weekends. It was definitely a challenge going to college 100 miles from here while still maintaining an active role in the cattle operation.
That he would someday go on to fill his namesake's shoes in running the family farming operation was understood from the beginning. One of his first moves in coming back to the farm was to shut down the dairy operation. His granddad, Ernest Jr.'s health began to fail. Labor shortages, combined with the need to upgrade aging facilities, prompted his decision to close the dairy for good. They replaced their dairy stock with more beef cattle. He runs more than 200 head of commercial cattle and registered Angus stock today. And he purchased a nearby tract of primarily timber acreage. Having hands-on experience in dealing with cattle genetics and embryo transfers through his dairy and college work, Ernest began his own reproductive technologies company, Repro Select, in 2005.
Cattle reproduction wasn't a far stretch from things that we were already doing on our own operation. Nothing that I did for that original business were things that we weren't already doing here for our own cattle operation.
He replaced the old milking barn with a state-of-the-art lab and cold storage facility. Starting with fewer than 100 customers that first year, Repro Select has grown to include nearly 1,000 clients all over the world, many of them top rodeo stock breeders, and today caters to both standard livestock genetics and wildlife.
You have to love what you do, and it's something I always wanted to be able to come back and do. And by doing the reproduction side, that has helped build our own cattle operation, has afforded me more opportunities to be here at home with my family. This is a lifestyle where the family can be actively involved in, and there's not many occupations that do afford that luxury.
Wife Courtney, a third-grade teacher, says she couldn't be prouder of what Ernest has accomplished.
There are several things that Ernest could be, but could I picture him working and going to that job and sitting behind a desk and having a boss that's going to dictate what he does? No. He's living his dream, and this has been his dream, to be proud of something that he's developed. This is him, and this is us, and we're pretty happy to be that way.
Paul Mensener raises wheat, cotton, and cattle in Runnels County, as well as owning a grain storage and marketing facility near Roscoe. He and his wife Monica have a son and a daughter. Becoming a certified public accountant wasn't an absolute necessity for Paul, but it certainly helps in the management of his farm and ranch operations near Rowena. Paul grew up in Runnels County, following his father's footsteps to the cotton fields before he had even finished high school. But before he committed to the farm full-time, Paul left for college and ultimately Midland, where he worked with an oil company as an accountant.
All along what I wanted to do was farm. I really liked it. I just knew that some big business experience would help me.
What started as a few dozen acres of cotton has grown more than tenfold, now including sizable tracts of wheat, hay, and grazing lands for his cow-calf operation. Proceeds from the farm and ranch operations helped him and a partner pool resources in 2008 to open Lone Star grain elevators near Roscoe, which he uses to store and market both his and other farmers' crops.
You see how CEOs are running those businesses and CFOs are managing the cash flows, and it really helps. It really gave me a whole different wealth of knowledge. You know, we're a lot smaller than they are, but you can learn from every opportunity you have.
Having those skills is important when tracking roller coaster markets and input costs, when banking on a business that offers no guarantees, as Paul knows all too well. Having lost much of his wheat crop this year to a doubleheader of drought and late frost. So where is that CPA license now?
Now it just hangs on the wall. Having a family to support, it made me feel a lot better to have that license hanging on the wall in case I ever needed a real job one day.
Not that he should have to worry with that anytime soon, says wife Monica, a teacher by profession who now stays home with 2-year-old Matthew and 1-year-old Elizabeth. Besides, 2 heads are always better than 1 in business.
I feel like the reason we've done well is because we communicate really well. Paul and I work together to manage the business, and when he's not sure about something or I'm not sure about something going on, we'll sit down and talk about the pros and cons. He really is a wonderful family man. He's a man of God. He supports me as his wife, our children, our church, and he really does have his priorities straight.
Michael Welch farms corn, wheat, cotton, and milo in Bell County, along with managing a beef cattle herd, custom farming operation, and liquid feed business. He and his wife Lee have 2 daughters. To be a farmer or rancher, Michael Welch says, it must be in your blood.
Ever since I could walk, I wanted to be on a tractor. The first tractor and planter I ever had was a little toy John Deere tractor and planter, and the first crop I put in was on my mom's brown shag carpet. Planted corn in the living room and then the dining room and the bedrooms. Each room represented a field that my dad was operating.
Those early farming games played havoc with Mom's vacuuming.
She wasn't allowed to vacuum the floor because it'd mess up my straight rows.
It wasn't long before Michael found himself doing the real thing on one of his dad's real rigs, spraying fence rows at the age of 4, before he later graduated to plowing corn stalks at age 7.
My mom got really mad at my dad. He came home and she asked him where I was, and he said I was in the field plowing, and she immediately got in her car and came and parked it in the ditch and waited until I got done with that farm.
By age 12, Michael was driving a combine and helping his dad tend cattle. He also ran his own lawn care business, which through careful money management helped him buy his first cattle and equipment. By high school, he had already put in his first crop, and his farming career was well underway. Today, Michael grows corn, wheat, cotton, and milo on both owned and leased farmland in Bell County. He also runs a 130-head commercial cow herd, as well as producing hay and running his own liquid feed business. When he's not farming his own land, he does custom work for other area farmers.
It's what I've wanted to do my whole life, and I'm really glad I'm able to do it today. I enjoy it. I don't think of it as a job, really. I love getting up every morning and going to work. It's been my dream since I was a little kid, and I hope I'm able to retire doing it, and maybe my kids one day will be able to do the same thing.
That's already a strong possibility, says his wife Lee, a special education teacher in nearby Temple.
I'm really glad that we're going to get to raise them in this kind of lifestyle. I think it's going to teach them a lot of valuable lessons that they'll be able to use throughout their life. And I'm pretty sure our 1-year-old already does enjoy it, because she was saying cows and hay before she even said mama. I really can't see Michael doing anything but what he is doing. He is really lucky because he's one of the few people that enjoys what he does.
And the winner of the Texas Farm Bureau's Outstanding Young Farmer Rancher Award was Ernest and Courtney Bales of San Jacinto County, Texas. Well, that's our show. We hope you'll join us again each week for a look at agriculture across the nation. Until then, wishing you a Merry Christmas, this is Gene Hall for Voices of Agriculture.